In the age when the sons of Alfred the Great still clung to the dream of a united England, when Viking longships lurked on the horizons like wolves stalking sheep, there rose a king whose story would be told not in triumph, but in failure. They called him Ethelred the Unready, but not because he was lazy, nor because he was unprepared in the way we might think today. His Old English epithet was unread, meaning ill-advised. He was a king guided by bad counsel, cursed by fate, and plagued by enemies who struck like thunder from the sea. For 37 years, 979-1013, then again 1014 to 1016, Ethelred would wear the crown of England. Yet his reign was not one of glory, but of blood, betrayal, and ruin. His was the reign that saw England ransacked by Viking armies, its churches burned, its people slaughtered, its silver drained in desperate bribes called Danegeld. His was the reign that paved the way for the coming of the Danish kings and the end of Anglo-Saxon England as it had been known. And yet his story is more than just a tale of disaster. It is a tragedy, a human drama of a boy crowned too young, haunted by a bloody prophecy, and left to rule a kingdom already trembling under the weight of destiny. This is the saga of Ethelred II, the Unready, a king fated to fail. Ethelred's rise to power was soaked in blood. His half-brother, Edward the Martyr, had been brutally murdered in 978 at Corfe Castle. Edward, still young, was stabbed while visiting his stepmother, Queen Glothrith, Laured's mother. Whispers spread that Glothrith herself had plotted the murder to place her own son, Ethelred, on the throne. Chroniclers, writing decades later, claimed the boy king could never wash the blood from his crown. He ascended the throne in 979 at just 12 years old, crowned at Kingston upon Thames. From the start, his reign was cursed with suspicion. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle thundered with ominous words. In this king's days nothing prospered, neither the realm nor the people, but they were continually harassed with raids and burnings. Was it the stain of fratricide or simply ill-fated fortune? Whatever the cause, England's darkest age had begun. For nearly 80 years, England had known relative peace since Alfred the Great had defeated Guthrum and the Danelaw had been absorbed into a single kingdom. But under Ethelred, the Viking terror returned in full force. 980's raids. In 980, just 1 year after Ethelred's coronation, Viking raiders struck Dorset, Thanet, and Hampshire. London was burned in 982, the Great Invasion of 991. By the 990s, fleets larger than anything Alfred had faced descended upon England. At Maldon in 991, Earl Byrhtnoth led the English against a massive Viking host. In one of the most famous battles in Anglo-Saxon history, Byrhtnoth fell and the Vikings triumphed. The defeat was immortalized in the Old English poem, The Battle of Maldon, celebrating English heroism even in loss. After Maldon, Ethelred made a fateful choice. Instead of resisting, he paid tribute, what became known as Danegeld. He gave the Vikings 10,000 pounds of silver to leave England in peace. But peace never came. Again and again, Ethelred turned to bribery. 991, 10,000 pounds. 994, 16,000 pounds. 1002, 24,000 pounds. 1007, 36,000 pounds. 1012, a staggering 48,000 pounds. Each payment bankrupted the kingdom, drained the people, and emboldened the raiders. The Vikings learned that England was rich, weak, and willing to buy survival. They came back each time, larger and hungrier. Worse still, some Viking leaders like Olaf Tryggvason of Norway and Sweyn Forkbeard of Denmark used England's wealth to fund their own ascents to royal power abroad. Ethelred was, in effect, paying for the rise of the very kings who would one day seek his throne. In 1002, Ethelred sought to secure peace through marriage. He wed Emma of Normandy, sister of Duke Richard II of Normandy. This was meant to forge an alliance that would prevent Vikings from using Normandy as a base to attack England. But that same year, Ethelred made one of the most infamous decisions of his reign. On St. Brice's Day, the 13th of November 1002, he ordered the massacre of all Danes living in England. It was a desperate attempt to rid his realm of Viking spies and settlers, but it was a slaughter. Men, women, and children were butchered in the streets. In Oxford, a group of Danes who sought refuge in St. Friedwide's Church were burned alive when the church was set aflame. Among the dead was, it is said, Gunhild, the sister of Sweyn Forkbeard, King of Denmark. This act turned the full wrath of Denmark upon England. Sweyn vowed vengeance, and from that moment on, England became his prize. For the next decade, England bled. Viking armies ravaged the land, churches were looted, towns burned. Leopold's commanders often betrayed him. Some joined the enemy. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle lamented, "Never was there a more harried king than Ethelred." By 1013, Sweyn Forkbeard himself invaded with the largest fleet yet. Town after town submitted. London alone resisted. But even there, support wavered. By Christmas 1013, the English nobility abandoned Ethelred. Sweyn Forkbeard was declared King of England, the first Danish king to sit on the throne. Ethelred fled across the Channel with Queen Emma and his sons, seeking refuge in Normandy. The once proud kingdom of Alfred lay broken. But fate had one last twist. Sweyn Forkbeard died suddenly in February 1014, after ruling England for only 5 weeks. His death left a power vacuum. The English nobles, desperate to preserve their independence, invited Ethelred back on one condition. He must rule better than before, take counsel from his lords, and abandon the ill advice that had cursed his reign. Ethelred agreed. He returned to England and was restored as king, but his enemies were not gone. Sweyn's son, Canute the Great, soon arrived to press his claim. The final 2 years of Leored's reign were filled with war. Canute ravaged the south, while Ethelred, old and sick, struggled to rally resistance. His sons, most notably Edmund Ironside, took the fight into their own hands. In 1016, with London under siege and the kingdom in flames, Ethelred died on the 23rd of April 1016. He had reigned for 37 years, the longest of any Anglo-Saxon king up to that point, but his reign had been a litany of defeats. His son, Edmund Ironside, inherited the crown and tried valiantly to resist Canute, but within months England would fall into Danish hands. The dynasty of Alfred the Great had come to its twilight. History has not been kind to Ethelred. To this day he is remembered as the Unready, the king who failed. Yet his tragedy is deeper than simple incompetence. He inherited a kingdom fractured by suspicion, crowned in fratricide, and beset by enemies more powerful than any his forebears had faced. He was no Alfred the Great, no warrior king like his son Edmund. He relied too often on counsel, and too often that counsel failed him. Still, beneath the shadow of failure, Ethelred left behind important legacies. His marriage to Emma of Normandy would shape the future of England. Through her, the Norman dukes gained their claim to the English throne, leading directly to the Norman conquest of 1066. His struggles against the Vikings paved the way for his son Edmund Ironside, and later Canute the Great, forging a new Anglo-Danish empire. But in the end, Ethelred was the king who watched England burn, the king who paid silver to his enemies, the king who fled when his people needed him most. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicles' words remain his epitaph. In his days, nothing went right. Ethelred, the unready England's doomed king, remembered not for what he built, but for what he lost.